Hey, good evening, and welcome back to the channel. So it's really late Sunday night when I'm recording this, and it's actually my first video of the week. I have kind of noticed that during this period of time, I've not been able to put out a lot of content, and it's not from a lack of interest of doing so, or a disinterest in the hobby whatsoever. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. Been very busy with some hobby-related things and also some things around the house. This weekend, you could see I'm kind of sunburned on my face here because I was actually outside for a good portion of it, between like training for a half marathon, but more so kind of spending a lot of time gardening and stuff like that around the house. We're actually embarking on a few home improvement projects all at once, including the card room too. Behind me, one of the big updates with the card room is actually got the furniture delivered here. So this is actually the big piece of furniture I got here where I'm able to put some of my binders in here. The intention with the wall that you see above it there is where the card displays are going to go. So I spent some time kind of measuring those things out tonight with the intention of maybe ordering those in the next couple weeks. So I can kind of get thinking like maybe two for this wall here, another one over here, and then another one on this side of the window over here. So it'd be like two 50s, a 35 and a 35 is what I was kind of thinking, in addition to the built-in that I had done too. So it's getting closer. They're still gonna have to get some things to be able to kind of, in order to display things in the cases that I have, in the bookcases I have. But I'm pretty excited about the way this is kind of coming along, and pretty excited just like everything we're doing around the house right now. But that's been kind of taking a lot of my time, so I haven't had a chance to really sit down and do content. In fact, I pretty much got a chance to do this at like 9 o'clock tonight. Because I was doing things pretty much all the way up until dinner this evening. So last 2 days. So there was no time to do much else. Other things. Wanted to talk briefly about the Baseball Hall of Fame possibility for all the 8 men out, the other people like Hal Chase that have been banned for life, and of course Pete Rose. All gambling related offenses in some way, shape, or form. On Thursday evening, I actually went to a meet and greet and a panel discussion with the director, the White Sox official historian, and also a journalist that actually attends both White Sox and Cubs games for WTTW. So PBS recently did a thing on their Chicago Story series, but they did it on the Chicago Black Sox scandal from 1919. And so the director was there, and those three individuals were doing a Q&A with Gene Honda, who's like the public address speaker for the Chicago White Sox. Also does like the Final Four games and stuff like that. He's usually like the voice of the Final Four, at least for the public address. And they were talking about the Joe Jackson thing. So the news had broke just 2 days earlier, before this talk, which had been scheduled for months. So I was there along with some other like baseball fans, White Sox fans, friends of like their family members, and also the granddaughter of Charles Comiskey was actually in attendance at this thing. The room probably had no more than maybe 35, 40 people in it all together. And it was pretty fun because we all got to ask some questions and things like that. So then the topic came up about the Black Sox and their potential eligibility for the Hall of Fame. They first wanted to kind of point out they really just kind of felt collectively there probably was only maybe 2 players of that little group that was banned there that probably have Hall of Fame credentials to begin with. And that was Sakati and also Joe Jackson. So they thought that the other ones, even if they were off the list, may not really kind of make the Hall of Fame just based on their baseball numbers alone. Hal Chase might be another one that kind of gets some serious consideration because of where the kind of player he was considered during the time that he played. But every single person on that panel was kind of in the same mindset that these guys intentionally were trying to deceive the public. And what they were doing, was it really for the intent of trying to just be able to make a few extra bucks? And like, who wouldn't we all be tempted to those situations? Sure. And they really didn't think they were going to get caught. So they thought that it was going to be like there was no victims in this scheme here too, by doing so. And unfortunately, that naivete didn't really result in them kind of getting what they thought they were owed, and obviously they had to kind of pay the ultimate price of being banned from baseball and dealing with that shame that they had for many of them throughout the remainder of their career. Although they kind of pointed out a couple players really didn't care that they got caught. And I don't think like Hal Chase necessarily did either, because I think he continued to throw games in like outlawed leagues and stuff like that after the time that he was banned. So it was kind of interesting hearing their perspective, and I do think one could make an argument that what they did is different from what Pete Rose did. Granted, what the public knows is that Pete Rose was always trying to bet to win when he was doing it, and he didn't do it all the time, and he never like intentionally threw a game. At least that's what we've been told as the public. Now, the sports writer in the room was kind of saying like, I don't know if that's always necessarily the case. I've had some players who have told me that's not necessarily the case, that were played for Pete Rose during that period of time. So take that for what it's worth. Like obviously this is not a first-hand account that I'm telling you. This is like a third-hand account of what they're telling you. So, I mean, as a manager, you would have influence even on the games that you didn't necessarily bet on by like holding back maybe your better relievers or sitting some players out of a game just to kind of get them rested for the next game, quote unquote. So you do have some chance or some autonomy in being able to kind of use your roster in a way where you could try and stack it up on the games you're trying to win. And inadvertently, you're not trying to win the other games as a result of it, even though it may not have been for financial gain at those points, but it just didn't really kind of result in an even playing field nevertheless. But of the mindset there with Pete is that so many people that have played with Pete really want to see Pete in the Hall of Fame. And those are going to be probably his peers. It's going to be a veterans committee potentially in 2027 that gets a chance to weigh in on the Black Sox and also Joe Jackson, and also Pete Rose. And, a lot of time has passed, obviously, since the Black Sox scandal, and a lot of those athletes have been dead for many, many, many years. And there's no one really alive that has a firsthand account of spending time with those guys, as players at least. Maybe when they're old age, they maybe have some stories to tell of them. But for the most part, there's not going to be no peers that are going to sit there and say, like, I think that Joe Jackson needs to be in the Hall of Fame because he was the best player I ever personally saw. Whereas Pete Rose is going to have that. Pete Rose is going to have a lot of those people that are on his side. I think it really just kind of comes down to, will the Veterans Committee be comprised of individuals that really have a very hard, firm line on that, really the one forbidden rule in baseball? And if they do, are they going to kind of weigh in and be sort of the quote unquote, moral majority, and kind of making a judgment on, they think even if their lifetime ban is over, they're still not really worthy of Hall of Fame consideration because of what they did, either on the field and or as the manager of their teams. And I personally, I think it would be interesting to kind of have them in there because of what they achieved on the field, and kind of in the same way potentially the steroids guys. You would definitely have to have some sort of asterisk with it. It would be interesting, but I'm also necessarily willing to get the guys who willfully threw a game to deceive the public and didn't try to win. So I would still kind of be okay if the decision was that they don't get in. I'm not maybe sort of like having the major opinion on that one for sure. I think I'm in the minority with that one. Now the steroid guys, I think, kind of is a little bit of a different argument because it was kind of condoned what they were doing by Major League Baseball. They weren't taking a stance against it, even though I think they knew very well what was happening. Even up until the kind of last minute when even the Senate was getting involved with it. They were kind of still being a bit of an ostrich and digging their head in the sand. So you can kind of understand, maybe their case is a little bit differently. But the part that's always kind of got me with the steroids guys is these guys were obviously some of these guys were the best players in the game at that time, whether it be Clemens or Bonds on either side, whether you're the hitter or the pitcher. And, I think other players probably looked up to them and maybe emulated them and were kind of following in their footsteps by also using at times themselves. And, for those that didn't, like, it wasn't a very even playing field for them. So is that the same as team trying to lose a game? Maybe not. I think the Stereo guys were trying to win. They just weren't trying to win equally. And the guys that didn't use. So, I mentioned before, like, I don't think we celebrate Frank Thomas and Ken Griffey Jr. just nearly enough as guys never being tied with steroids in their lifetime. And I think they kind of got passed over in some ways by the achievements of the steroid users. And we just didn't celebrate them enough towards the end of their careers, as you had guys that were hitting 60, 70 home runs in a season. So those are kind of my thoughts with that. I do have some stuff to show you. I also have an update too on the big purchase of football cards that I had available to me 2 weeks ago. So I have an update on that. I'm going to turn around the camera, give you an update on that, and also show you some things that came in recently. All right, flip the camera around. So starting with the large football card collection. So it wasn't just football cards that were in that collection. I did make an offer on Monday night of this week, and it was accepted within like 15 minutes of the offer, which was really exciting because I was really very meticulous in pricing out cards and pricing at a price where I still thought I had an opportunity to be able to pay for the price of grading for many of them. And, I wouldn't get killed if they didn't get the maybe grades what I'm hoping for. So, like, I think it was just a win-win. And talking with the person that purchased them, they just didn't have the time or really the energy to want to be able to do kind of the work to put in to be able to sell these cards. So they were happy to just kind of get them off their hands. So I think it worked out for all of us, and I'm pretty excited. So I spent some time just earlier this evening starting to kind of put stuff into, out of like old screw down top holders and things like that, into the stuff in semi-ridges holders and penny sleeves to be able to kind of submit them for grading. Sorry, I'm a little tired, so I'm kind of mumbling here, but just wanted to give you kind of a sampling of some things that I've kind of been able to pull out so far. And I still have a ton of cards to be able to kind of go through and do the same process. But here we got, like, get a little better light on this. We got, Tom Seaver in there. Got a couple rookie cards of Carlton Fisk or Cecil Cooper, where we kind of follow there. Here's the second one. Walter Payton. Pretty excited to be able to kind of submit that one and see how it goes. A really beautiful looking Steve Largent rookie. So we'll see how that one kind of goes. Got a couple Joe Montanas in this order. So sorry if there's not like really good light right now. My room still is kind of missing some things. So I'm kind of working with a really bare bones room right now and just a few lights. Another Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Dan Marino, another Barry Sanders here, Barry Sanders, Barry Sanders, Barry Sanders, Barry Sanders, and a Frank Thomas, actually. Frank Thomas Leaf card. So it's mostly going to be stuff from the 80s. The oldest, I think, card in here is probably not going to be, the oldest one's going to be the Tom Seaver of all the ones I looked at. But the newest one's going to probably be that Frank Thomas in there. So it's all like kind of like big names from the 80s and late 70s. So I'm kind of pretty curious to see how a lot of things will kind of eventually grade out once I kind of go do the due diligence of going through each card and seeing which one's worth grading. But right now I'm kind of getting them out of like old yellowed top loaders and things like that. And, just kind of, kind of grimy, dusty old card stuff, binders and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get all that stuff out of there and into like the semi-ridges. All right, so got three new cards. We'll do this one first. This is the first one that came in a few weeks ago. It's another Sapphire. This is actually one that features Mookie Betts and Albert Pujols. This is a 2019 release. This one is numbered out of 25. So I'm pretty excited to be able to pick this one up. It's the first one I've gotten from 2019. Get this light a little bit better here. Not sure I'm going to be able to because it's not in the right position where I normally have it. So I can move this up a little bit better so you can see it. So you got kind of the beautiful sapphire sort of orange kind of shine to it. So I'm pretty excited to have that one in my collection now, and it will be one at some point I'll send off for grading. And the next two are going to be more diamond stars. This is really exciting because this actually brings me up to now just needing 33 more cards. So if the next one I get will actually get me down to just one third of the set more I need to do. So I'm going to take these out of their little perfect fit sleeves, starting with card number 49. This is Buck Jordan from the 35 release, and the PSA 3. Just beautiful, beautiful cards. And super excited to kind of be working on this set and have these. Hope to be able to kind of get a lot more of the National coming up in a couple of months, and kind of really make a dent in that final third. It'd be great if I can get like to 20 or less by the end of the year. And then this is from a 36 release. This is going to be card number 92, Ethan Allen. He has an interesting thing that he did as an entrepreneur at the end of his life after his baseball career is over, which I'll go over when I actually do his card in particular. But there you go. That was kind of the updates I had. My thoughts on the Hall of Fame, card room update, a little bit of where I've been the last couple of weeks, and another wonderful sapphire kind of coming in. So I'll keep you all abreast as I continue to work on sorting through these cards and getting them off to SGC. I would love to be able to do that in the next couple of weeks here, and then we'll just start the waiting game to see how it goes until I have the opportunity to get those back and with the scores and put them up for sale. That's kind of the intention of what I'm going to be doing. So I hope to be back probably again by next weekend. It's going to be another kind of busy week for me, doing some of that, but also some other things that we're doing home improvement wise around the house. And then I also have a baseball game coming up next Sunday, which will be a lot of fun. So I'll kind of cover that as well. All right, so have a great great beginning of your week, everybody. And thanks for listening to watching this long video.